If you've never heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast, and I'll explain really quickly. My favorite part, it's free. There's actually creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer if you want. It will actually distribute your podcast so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple, and many more, and you can actually make money from it without any minimum numbers of listeners, and it's everything that you need to actually make a podcast in one place. So do this, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. In this first episode, I actually interviewed Brian Schulman, who is really my mentor when it comes to LinkedIn. Had the opportunity of connecting with him back in April of 2019. And he was just so encouraging, so motivating. His content is so positive. He's been on LinkedIn every day for the last 16 years and was one of the first beta testers for video. So he got nicknamed the Godfather of LinkedIn video. So I can't wait for you all to hear his inspiring story of his journey just being born and coming to this earth. Check it out and let me know what you think. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and rate the podcast if you like it. Thanks so much. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Blaze Your Own Trail podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Mendoza, and I've got a very special guest with me today. It's my first guest on the podcast. Some of you may know him. His name is Brian Schulman, and I want to give you all some insights on Brian, just a little bit about him and his background. And so, Brian has been on the internet since it was a green screen and chat rooms, more than 20 years proven in the digital marketing space and e-commerce. He's worked with tons of Fortune 500 brands, as well as IR 500 brands across the globe. And I could probably stop there, but I'm going to give you all a little bit more insights into him. So he is a Forbes featured entrepreneur and as well as LinkedIn top voice. He's a founder and CEO of Voice Your Vibe, and he's created a hashtag on LinkedIn. You might have seen it. It's called hashtag Voice Your Vibe. He's one of the pioneering top LinkedIn video creators, not just in the States, but actually across the globe. And he's a sought after international speaker. He does speaking engagements throughout the year. In July of 2019, he actually broke the LinkedIn Live record of 3 hours, being the first to broadcast live and for more than 4 hours. And, so Brian, that's such an amazing bio and such an amazing accomplishments. And what are you, about 25, 30? So how did you do all this in that short of a period of time?
Yeah, you were way too kind. You can call me 25 or 30 as much as you want. I started inside my mom's womb. That's pretty much how it all happened. No, Jordan, I'm just got to start by saying I have so much love for you, and I'm so honored to be your very first guest on this podcast. I'm so excited for you in this show, and just excited for what we're going to dig into today. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of yours and everything you do, and I know this is going to be an awesome conversation, and I can't wait to see all the incredible conversations that you have with your guests to come. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, for some folks that are out there, you have a pretty amazing story, and like you said, it all started in your mom's womb, and your journey to life wasn't easy. So I want you to just give us a little glimpse into that. And then I've got some other follow-up questions that I want to ask. And so the audience can get some insights into Brian Schulman a little bit better.
Yeah, sure. So I have actually been doing this just the last couple podcasts I've been on, because I think there's something really powerful when you hear stories from other voices that are a big part of your heart. So I want to answer that question, but I want to actually answer that question through my daughter's voice, if you're okay with it.
Absolutely. That'd be amazing.
So let me give you some backstory here. So I was sitting in my home office and doing some work. My daughter walks in, and she hands me a couple pieces of paper, which now I have in my hand. Um, and this was January of last year, and she just said, I want you to read something. And so I stopped what I was doing, and she sat down in the chair next to me. She wanted me to read it while she was sitting there, and at the very top it says four-way speech contest essay, which I came to find out was extra credit. Like, she didn't have to do this. And so it's entitled, like, she gave me no background. She just handed me these papers. And so the title of it is Live to Inspire. So I'm going to try and get through this without breaking down, but I have yet to accomplish that. So just bear with me. This story about to be told is about an extraordinary man, 42 years young, who accepted all the obstacles life had to throw at him. Now, I know you may be thinking that everyone has different obstacles they just overcome throughout their lifetime. So how is he different from you and I? What makes this particular man different from you and I is the tactic he used when faced with these obstacles. What makes him different from you and I is he took these obstacles and used them to help make a difference and inspire others to never let life get in the way of their greatness and achievements. What makes us different from everyone else is not the obstacles that life throws at us, but what we do when faced with these obstacles. Will you choose to accept defeat or choose to persevere? On May 13th, 1975, a child was born in Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. This child was born 3 months early, weighing 1.5 pounds, and because of that, was a premature baby. During the early 80s, he was diagnosed with Tourette's syndrome, which is a type of tic or twitch, involuntary repetitive movements and vocalization type of neurological disorder. And one day at camp, the counselors had to take this young boy to a payphone, tears streaming down his face, to call his mother because his neck was constantly snapping to one side over and over and over again. He went to various doctors who performed countless neurological medical exams to try and find a cure for his disorder. Every doctor said the same thing. He's fine. He'll grow out of it. One day in 5th grade, he stood up in front of his entire class and shared with them what Tourette syndrome was and what living with Tourette syndrome was like. A huge weight was lifted off his shoulders once he shared his story with his classmates, and it generated many supporters, whether they be friends, parents, or teachers. Finally, a specialist at UCLA told him, once diagnosed, that he would never be able to get rid of this disorder, let alone, and suggested that he take a special drug called clonidine to help with the tics. Unfortunately, with this drug came horrible side effects. He made a conscious decision not to take the pills after a few years and try to master his condition through focus and determination. After a while, the tics started to diminish and, for the most part, went away. No one knows what life has in store for them. All we can do is live until we're forced to face an obstacle in which we must make a choice to either overcome or accept defeat. The Rotary 4-Way test demonstrates how one person can make a difference in the lives of others. With the experiences this boy had to face came a life lesson. With determination, perseverance, and support from others, anything can happen. Now, at 42 years young, this man chose to use his story to make a difference in the lives of others by inspiring people in times of uncertainty. He implements the Rotary's motto, service before self, by finding the light in those who cannot find it in themselves, supporting them through their tough obstacles. He helps lift people's spirits and hopes in times of hopelessness and despair. He helps people turn their ideas and dreams into realities. He helps build people from the ground up in hopes that they too will one day share their stories with others. he makes a difference in this world each and every day, which inspires others to make a difference as well. Who, may you ask, is this man? Well, he is my father. Out of all the lives he's made a difference in, I believe he's made the biggest difference in mine. He inspires me to never give up on what I believe in, to always do what makes me happy, but most importantly, to always live every day as if it were the last, because we are never guaranteed a tomorrow. As Gandhi once said, be the change you wish to see in the world. Making a difference in the lives of others is my dad's change. What will be yours?
Man. Yeah, that's I don't even know how you were able to read it out loud, like holy cow. And that's and so, what I take away from that is like you've not only inspired thousands of people globally, but one that you had the ability to create, and that's got to be probably, one of the most rewarding inspirations to your credit. And I understand everything that she's saying, Brian, and I know I've told you this before, but I definitely want my audience to know. But back in April, I came across your What's Good Wednesday videos, and I remember the first Wednesday I saw it, I was like, first of all, when did video come on LinkedIn? Like, where the heck did this come from? Because I was so dormant, I wasn't using the platform. And then I came across this guy, Brian Schulman, on a Wednesday, and I was like, who is this guy? Like, this video is pretty cool. Like, and I started reading the comments, and everybody was talking about things that were good, and I just started to. I knew that I had to start following you was the first thing. It was an instant. I've got to follow this guy. This guy's got something going on. I had zero context into really who you are, except for a guy on video, and then Shout Out Saturday happened, and I remember it coming across my feed on a Saturday, and I was like, man, this guy like is giving back to people. He is literally inspiring and shouting people out, and it was something as basic as I had a conversation with you. And when I looked around my world, I didn't have anyone else that was doing that. I didn't have anybody that was providing value and insights and love and support and encouragement into people on a daily basis. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, because you sparked in me that ability to create that first video. And as you know, my friend, as we've been having these conversations since, I think our first talk was, I think maybe in May when I was up in Boston, and I haven't looked back ever since. I've been, creating content and talking about things that are important to me, and you really, gave me that courage to say, why am I worried about being judged by other people? Because even though I'm super energetic, always been an optimistic guy and positive, like I still had those things in my head of like, who wants to listen to me? Like, why do I have a message that needs to be shared? And really, like, you helped get that out of me. And from that story that your daughter wrote, it's you do that literally on a daily basis. And so, your motto of wanting to inspire one person a day, that's a motto that I want to try to live by as well, because it's amazing. So thank you.
Thank you. And you do, Jordan. You do. You inspire me. You inspire people all over the world. I don't know if you actually recognize it. And I say that because honestly, yeah, my why is to inspire one person a day. And I have people tell me all the time, to your words, that I'm inspiring people all over the world. And I think, don't get me wrong, like that's my hopes. Like I want to inspire millions of people, right? But one person, I mean, it's just one person, because one person can impact another person, becomes a ripple effect. And I think you and I are a really good example, right? How I inspired you and you are inspiring others, and others are being inspired by you and wanting to do the same, right? And it's awesome. It really is awesome. And you talk about the courage and the bravery and finding that, and that you had a voice, and the confidence that kind of built in you. And that was me, Jordan. I was you. I was completely uncomfortable. I didn't have confidence. I had never, put the phone in front of my face before and done what you see me do now almost 500 times on video on LinkedIn 2 years into this month. I was so green. I didn't even know there were apps that existed for videos. Like I didn't know anything about any of it. And it was really, really uncomfortable. But I think, I don't know, I've spent my whole life getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And I mean it, or what I should say is I've spent my whole life being uncomfortable. The getting comfortable part happened along the way. It's like I think there's different things that happen to us along our journey that help with that. Our mindset shift. I never, honestly, I literally didn't have a voice coming into this world, and then not only being the small kid, but then being the weird kid my whole life, with Tourette's, which by the way, it's interesting because, you talk about just courage and bravery and not really feeling you have a voice. And especially if you put it in the context of like a LinkedIn, right? Like it's like jumping into, I don't even know what the analogy is, but you're jumping into this world that you may not fully get, right? And then because it's just so different than what you're used to being in. And then it's all these business professionals, right? Millions and millions of business professionals that are here, and you're sitting here going, oh my God, I'm going to get on video. Like, what am I going to say? How am I going to be judged? What's my boss going to think? What's that person going to think? What are my potential clients or partners or customers going to think? Like, there's all these things that can go into your head, right? And I think about the fact that I've fallen so much more and I've failed so much more than I have succeeded. And yet, I think the really important part about that statement is the fact that every time you do fall and fail, you are succeeding, you are winning, because that's when you're learning, and you certainly don't know when it happens. Whatever diversity we go through in life, those really, I was just sharing this with a friend of mine the other day that's going through a really hard time right now. And I told him that. I said, you don't have to know why this is happening to you. Because if you try and figure out the why, you are going to drive yourself literally crazy trying to figure it out. All you need to know is that it's meant to happen this way, and that something good is going to come from it. It may not happen right this second, but I guarantee you from my own personal experience that everything happens for a reason. If it's meant to be, it'll be. And there's always something good that comes from having every trial and tribulation, every challenge, every grind that you have to go through in your life. And a lot of times we'll look back and go, why is it so hard? Right? Like, why does life, I think we all go through this at some point. You look up and you go, why? Like, what? Why do you keep putting me through so much? Right? Yeah. Like, give me a bone, if you will. Like, show me some light, because it feels like every single, like there's just it's one more thing, and it just keeps stacking like a cake on top of each other. I was bullied growing up as a kid. I was always the small kid, so there was that. And then I had the Tourette's. I was the weird kid, and there was that. And I never knew who was really my friend, and because there was a lot of tongue in cheek even from the people that were close to me, and being the last kid picked for whatever it was, and all those things, right? And going through some pretty dark depressional type moments, and then coming out of them, and then something flipping in my head and realizing, hey, okay, you know what? I want to be around more people. I don't ever want anyone feeling the way that I did, or being treated the way that I did, or I want them to walk away feeling good. and uplifted and positive and better. I want them to feel better, right? It took me up until high school to kind of get to that place, and that was fostered certainly by my parents, but and then really breaking out of the shell come college, and then finding LinkedIn along the way, and just all of that, right? And I mean, really, it wasn't until my very first LinkedIn video that I realized I had a voice and a story that mattered. Because honestly, Jordan, the word weird, right? I never looked at the word weird as a good thing. I looked and I thought of the word disability versus differently abled. Like it was more of a negative connotation. I mean, I count on one hand the number of times that I'd ever really talked about the life story stuff. Uh, fifth grade when I got diagnosed and I was able to finally say this is what this is, and I was terrified and relieved at the same time. Wrote a paper about it in eighth grade, wrote a paper about it in college. One time in high school, I passed a kid in the hallway, one of my classmates. He did 3 different ticks at one time, and I knew in an instant he had Tourette's. And I remember going home to my mom and telling her, and I'm like, I don't know what to do, but I no question, I know it. And we wound up getting him and his parents to UCLA, where I got diagnosed in the 80s, which, by the way, back then it was so new. Like there was no, there were no thick books with all this information yet. It was really early, right? And one time in my career where I had barely any experience. I mean, I started in retail, kind of grew up in that industry, and then got into technology. And I didn't really have much in terms of legs to stand on or any things to tout. I was going into sales, and so I figured I'll just tell my story. It's about tenacity and grit and learning and growing, and give me a shot, right? I mean, everybody in their career can relate to this. Like somebody gave you a shot at some point. You may not have felt you deserved it, or that you were worthy, or that you didn't have any experience, but somebody gave you a shot to earn that experience, right? To get that opportunity. And I met with like eight different hiring managers and a bunch of different people in between, and shared the whole life story thing. And after every single interview, they all said the same thing. Well, that's a great story, but why should we hire you? And I just kept going through it and kept sharing it, same questions. And I walk out of there with my head down and tail between my legs. And I said, I'm never going to talk about this again. Because again, I looked at it as I'm weird, I'm different, and I just want to blend in, right? Like that was always the thing. I didn't want to stand out. And there's so many stories along the way I could share about that kind of stuff. But I think the point though is I never talked about it after that. I never talked about it in the workplace, and fast forward to LinkedIn Video, which is now just 2.5 years old. My very first video was me sharing my life story, and it was in front of 500 million people at that time. And I was terrified. I had access for 5 months. I sat on it. One, because I was terrified, because all I thought was, what if my Tourette's come out? So just for your listeners, for your audience's sake, in the height of my Tourette's, which was in my teens, I was jumping up and down, somersaulting from room to room, multiple facial expressions, lots of auditory noises, these intense neck twitches, wrist flicking. A lot of times these things would commingle too. And the kicker is that you don't know you're doing them more times than not when it's happening. So I had many, many moments where I'm sitting here going, I don't understand. I'd come home crying to my mom and say, why does nobody like me? And why does everybody keep making fun of me? And I just didn't understand. I didn't know. And the amazing mother of mine, would take me in the bathroom, and she had these big mirrors, and she'd say, okay, I want you to see something. And she'd do every tick and twitch I was doing, and then say, okay, let her rip, whatever you've got in you, let it out. Cause I would try and suppress it. Problem is, when you do that, it's like a bomb waiting to go off. And so I just would let it all go. And then she'd put on some music and we'd start dancing. And, it was a way my mom was really, really, really good, is really good about like that kind of stuff, always giving me a place of safety and 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 fun and laughter and at the same time, right? Because it's important to recognize what's happening when it's happening, but also to lighten the mood,
Absolutely. No, and I appreciate you sharing those insights. And when you mention failure and how you've had to, in order to be as successful as you are, you have to go through that adversity. You have to go through those things. And I'm really a firm believer too that we're a sum total of all our failures, right? As long as we learn from them. Because I think that you can fail, but if you don't learn the lesson that it's there to teach you, then it's hard to get to the other side of it. But truthfully, if you think about life in general, like we are the sum total of all everything that we've done that we failed in. If we took that lesson and we applied it to the next thing we did, hopefully not repeating it, then those are things that we can teach other people. That's how we can actually help give value back to others and say, listen, this is what I did. Don't do this. Let's try something different, and apply this technique.
No, it's so true. In life and business, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, I've been building startups for 20 years, and I've literally been through the lowest of lows and the highest of highs. I've helped take companies public and acquisitions and mergers and all that. And it's so true. Like what you just said is so true. And if we, in anything, right? In anything, in life and business, like if we learn from that, I didn't even realize along my journey how much I was learning until other founders were reaching out to me going, we would really love, to work with you so that we can understand things that you've been through that we haven't gotten to yet. Maybe we don't have to go down this really long road and grind our knees as much as we have to if we can learn from things and kind of pivot or know when to pivot, right? Those are the biggest things that I found just along the journey, where it's the unknown, right? When you don't know what you don't know, it's a crazy ride, right? But that's what you're saying, which is we don't know what we don't know. A lot of times, even just thinking about it as a parent, right? I mean, I've got a 19-year-old who's got her first year in college and a junior in high school who I think as parents, it's a natural parental instinct to want to grab their shirt before they step in a hole or fall off a cliff or fall on the ground or trip on something, right? We don't want them to necessarily have to go through something that we've been through and know what can happen, right? And yet sometimes they have to fall. They have to take that step. They gotta trip, and we can be there to pick them up, right? That's the important part, is be there to lift them up, to go, okay, yeah, here, let me just dust you off. Let me pat you on the butt. You're good. Like, smile. It's okay. It's okay to fall. It's okay to feel like you just completely flopped at whatever it may be. Go do it again, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that's the thing too, right? Is I didn't know any better. I just kept getting up and going, and my mom was there, and everybody around me in my life was there to just keep going. And but again, I didn't look at all that stuff as, why would I want to share that? Who's gonna
Yeah.
care about that, right? Which brings me to a pivotal moment, which we talked about in terms of LinkedIn video in that first video. Right when that happened, when LinkedIn video launched in alpha, June of 2017, the Let's Get Honest campaign launched. And it was from a number of different folks on LinkedIn, Manu Swish Goswami and Authentic Alex in London, and Michaela Alexis was actually, it changed everything. I've been on LinkedIn every day for 16 years come December. The platform was a year old when I joined, and everyone was conforming. You're fitting in this business box that they kind of put you in, this business social networking platform. And so people were showing up and talking about business. It was all business. And you were wearing your suit. Like you would, if you will, show up at any kind of company or job, like a same kind of thing, just digitized. And yet when the Let's Get Honest campaign launched, it changed everything. More so at that time than the previous, whatever it was, 14 years. for me because they were talking about things that were really personal. And it wasn't even just that. Like for me, inspirationally, this was a generation like they could have been my kids, like literally. And for them to rise up and share their hearts and their voices, and so not only talk about fears and failures, but speech impediments and agoraphobia and rape, like I mean, talking some really personal life stuff. Um, it was really inspiring, right? Because they were using their voices and sharing something that was really vulnerable for them. And I was inspired, but again, 5 months to take the leap and then finally do it. And the kicker was all the love and support and encouragement that I saw from that. It changed everything for me, especially knowing the history now that I've shared of what I've been through, you know, just in a small portion. I wanted to give that to everybody that I saw. And there were, you know, there weren't a lot of us pioneers on LinkedIn video back when it started. But anybody I saw popping up, anybody I saw getting on video, it was just, I wanted to give them the same love, support, and encouragement. And because it meant the world to me, literally, it meant everything to me. And community means everything to me because of what I've been through. And I wanted to bring people together for the good and make, you know, I wanted people to feel good going through their journey because it was hard. It wasn't easy. Certainly wasn't easy for me. I know it was tough for a lot of people, but more and more people start showing up and you support them. And I think it's just realizing something that you said, which is everyone does have a voice in a story and a voice in a story that matters. And if you understand that, and if you realize that even in a place like LinkedIn, which most people in the majority of 655 million people look at it and go, why would I ever do something like that on a business social networking platform? Because it's all about being human and it's all about relatability. And people do business with people they like, know, and trust, right? You always get to know people. It's the human part first. And when you show up and you share from your heart, incredible things will happen.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right there. And, I remember, when I posted that first video, and I think the video I posted, I haven't gone back to look at it probably since maybe 3 weeks after I posted it, but I can remember going back to it like every 5 minutes after I posted it. And I was like, has anyone seen this yet? Like I've got I don't know, I think I had like 7,000 followers or connections or whatever. And I was like, 3 people. I was like, woo, like, yeah, this is, I was excited. I was pumped that, 3 views. And then I was like, wait a minute, I think that was all me. Like all 3 times are probably actually me looking at that video. And then I was like talking, having the self-talk moment of like, what are you doing? Who cares? Did you post it because you want to see how many people saw it? Or did you post it because you had a question to ask? And so when I really shifted that from like posting for the metric side of it and just went into, listen, if I want to talk about sales, I want to share something about sales that I went through that could help somebody that's in sales. Like the purpose is to provide value versus how many views am I going to get by saying this thing. And when I did that, I mean, it literally changed everything. Like I actually got people that started engaging and I was like, oh, someone said something. And then I remember like not wanting to say anything back because felt weird, it was like they said something. Should I respond to them? I remember just being like, it was just kind of, it was weird. Like you said earlier, it was weird. It was like this, I remembered LinkedIn was where I would go when I got an alert on my phone that said, Bill just had his anniversary. Why don't you tell him congratulations? And so I'd be the guy congratulating like the 17 people on my list. And then, and then it was like, happy anniversary, happy work anniversary, like all these different things is really the only, and I thought it was like, maybe if I was looking for a job, there's a recruiter that could help me. And so when I came back this April of 2019 and saw your mug come across my feed, I don't even know how you came across. I mean, it was just meant to be, I guess, that all of a sudden, there was a hashtag that I used that, was synonymous with you. And then you showed up and I was like, what the heck? It was like a world changing event. and then thinking about it and saying, like, could I do this too? Because truthfully, if we really think deep down about what video is public speaking. And for me, as a facilitator, as a trainer, as a speaker, as a coach, I do public speaking all the time, but I looked at it different though, because like you said earlier, the audience is presidents and CEOs and coworkers and actual friends, like people that know me outside of, a networking platform. And so you're worried about that judgment of, like, what if they think asked a silly question, or maybe they hit the dislike button, maybe they'll, and even though there's not a dislike button, it's like that imaginary button that you think's there. And so I think for me, it was like that shift. Like, once I realized everybody that's on there is a living, breathing human. They all laugh, they all cry, they all stub their toe, they all go through these things. And so I just started doing it and saying, I think I want to help people on a bunch of different levels, whether it's with sales, customer service, whether it's personality assessments, which I specialize in. Like, I want to educate people and add that value to them. And so as long as I'm going in it like that, I remember having this very conversation with you, is like, I was just like, this is what I want to do, this is like what I'm passionate about. And you're saying, then do it, because that's the right reason. That's the right reason to share your voice, to share your message, and to start sharing your story.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And I remember the conversation, and I've had that conversation with so many people, because again, it's this conundrum. You're like, I don't know what is my why? Like, what am I passionate about? What do I want to share? And I think, and you said something really, really important, Jordan, which is, and we've all been through it. Anybody that's been on video, like, we all go through that, looking at the number. Oh gosh, how many views, how many likes, what's the, what is it at? How many shares? Like, all those things. And I think when you put that aside and go, okay, it's not about the likes, it's not about the views, it's about engagement, it's about impact, right? Is my message, going to reach someone? Is it going to affect somebody's life in a positive way by me sharing whatever it is that I'm sharing? Just one person, just one person. And a lot of times, it's so true. Like, you don't hear from anybody, I mean, in the early days, like, I wasn't hearing from anybody. I mean, I've been posting on LinkedIn ever since you could post. Like, I've been through that whole journey, right? Forget video for a second, but like, there was such a long period of time where I'd never hear from anybody. And I'm sitting here going, am I really reaching anyone with this? Like, and potentially questioning my why, but remembering, okay, hold on. Just because you don't hear from anybody doesn't mean you're not reaching anybody. And that's a really important thing for people to remember, because a lot of times, depending on whatever message you're conveying or where they were working or whatever, they feel like they can't engage or comment, or, and maybe they'll send you a note behind the scenes and go, hey, look, I couldn't comment on this, but I really want to know, like, this message really touched me, or, I could really relate to what that was, or thank you so much for whatever that nugget was, whatever it is. I think it's all about remembering, just go with what's in your heart. If you go with what's in your heart, you're never going to go wrong. Whatever message you want to share. And the power of video, I mean, the only thing missing from video is you can't touch the person, you can't smell them. Although the reality is, you can touch someone. You can touch someone with your heart and with your message and with your voice. And if you realize that, and just keep starting, every day is day one. To what you said earlier, you're always, as long as you're learning, right? And when you're in the moment, a lot of times when you're in the moment, especially those really hard moments that are really challenging, where you're questioning everything, you're not thinking I'm growing, you're thinking this sucks. Like, how do I embrace the suck of this moment and keep going? It's when you look back and go, wow, I really grew during that moment. And that's something else I said to my friend the other day, which was, you don't realize it right now, but this incredibly hard moment for you, you're going to look back and go, wow, I kept going and I kept growing, but not knowing it, because I kept going. And that is extremely powerful for yourself, for others. It's extremely inspirational. But again, when you're going through it, it's hard, right? It's a really vulnerable moment um, to realize it. And I think the more that you remember that when you're going through it, like I have so many times where I'll be in just because it happens to me all the time, just a really hard moment. And like I've gotten hit like 3 times back to back when I just wasn't expecting it to happen. And I just was like, okay, right. Like I just had to laugh and go, okay, I surrender. Like apparently this is meant to be happening right now. I really have no idea why, but okay, I get it. It's supposed to happen. I know there's a reason for it for the good, and I'll roll with it and just keep going, right? And that's the thing is I think it's really easy for us to give up. It's so easy for us to just stay in that moment of pain and frustration, and many times you're angry at yourself or whatever, just like, come on, why? and and that's the other side, Jordan. I think is if you can if we can take those moments more times than not with that learning and remembering and going, okay, remember that time earlier where you never thought you'd get through it? Look where you are now, saying that about something else. It's one of the things that I actually recommend to people to do is because we all have our phones are an extension, they're another appendage, right, of ourselves. And when you're in that moment of suck, pull out your phone, hit selfie mode, hit record, and just talk to yourself in that moment. Be vulnerable with yourself, have that conversation with yourself. And then the next it happens where you feel like the floor was dropped out from under you and you don't know how you're going to get back up, let alone reach the top where the sun is again. Play that video where you thought that the first time. Or better yet, record the video again in that moment and then go watch the other one and remember that you got out of it. And that's what happens is this is the other thing I said to my friend is we're never given anything that we can't handle. No matter how crazy it looks, how hard it looks, we're never given anything that we can't handle. And that's kind of crazy when you think about it, because we don't think about that in the moment. But if you try and remember that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I completely get that. And, I look at, my life growing up and all the things that I've been through and, adversity and things like that. And you look back and you're like, I'm here. Like I faced that, I experienced that and I came through stronger by going through it, and it's giving me strength that I didn't even think that I could possibly really ever have. So I want to talk a little bit about, why I named the podcast what it is. It's called the Blaze Your Own Trail podcast. And for me, I've got a regular 9 to 5 and I love it and I'm thriving at it. And a couple years ago, I decided to start a small consulting company with, I'm the whole thing, right? And it was, predicated on personality assessments. And then, earlier this year, I started adding some other things to the arsenal. And I know we've had conversations about this where I've started helping other people with personal branding, build their brand, whether maybe they want help with building a sales training program. So I'm helping people with that. I'm also coaching people that might be in a struggle that I've actually faced before, and I give them guidance on how to overcome that. So, that's one of the reasons I titled this Blaze Your Own Trail, because I want to blaze my own trail in that regard. I want to, my goals long-term are to be a full-time entrepreneur. And I think this is really the start of all that. So kind of last question, but how did you start to blaze your own trail in business? Like, what was it where you said, I want to be the founder and CEO of Voice Your Vibe?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of entrepreneurs in my family, and I grew up around that kind of element. Not that I was really thinking about it, but I did. And college, I was a founder of my fraternity at San Diego State called Phi Kappa Theta. It's a nationwide fraternity. John F. Kennedy was a Phi Cap, Gene Kelly. I could rattle off many incredible men, but we literally built a company from the ground up. And if anybody's ever seen the original movie Revenge of the Nerds, that was us. Like, we were the mutts. We were a mosh of everybody, the nerds, the jocks, literally everybody, and all shapes, colors, sizes, creeds, and we were doing something really incredible. And it's crazy because 25 years this year is when we started to build that. So fast forward this whole video journey and such, right? I mean, I've been helping Fortune executives for years behind the scenes when it came to things like LinkedIn, and I just wanted to help people. It wasn't about visibility or money. It wasn't about any of that. I just wanted to help people because I figured out after falling on my own feet, you know, how to do this thing. And I wanted to help people figure it out because the reality is one step in the wrong direction. Literally, you're one click away from having a conversation with anyone and everyone in business, from the founder to the funder to the chairman to the janitor and everybody in between. And you are one click away from never having a conversation with them if you don't know what you're doing. And it's crazy. And through my video journey, I've just had so many incredible opportunities pop up through my whole LinkedIn journey, for that matter. Builders of companies asking me if, like, that basically take disheveled companies and people from different places, put them together to build it back up. I had one of these builders reach out to me at one point. He didn't know me. Meaning we had never had any conversations before, knew of my presence and how I was showing up and background, right, from what I had shared. Asked me if I wanted to be the CEO of one of these companies just from showing up, right? I have always realized that you never get to where you are alone, and you have to reach down and lift people up, and you have to send the ladder down. And me starting my company, Voice Your Vibe, which is all about teaching brands and leaders within organizations and teams within companies how to tell a story that people will fall in love with on LinkedIn. And I mean, it crosses all social medias, right? But LinkedIn is my home. It's where I said from the very beginning, I want to be all in, and this is where I need to be. This was it. I didn't know why. I just had a gut feeling. And I wound up starting a company many, many, many years later, right? And unbeknownst to me, Jordan, building a brand that I didn't even know I was building, right? It was just me showing up, helping people wherever I could, and hoping to inspire one person a day. And so when I formed the company, which basically was after 4 years of helping build and grow another startup, I had a friend and confidant and former customer of mine that said, why have you not started your company yet? Like, nobody does what you do the way you do it. Like, what are you waiting for? Right. And I felt fulfilled because I had, like you, I had corporate job and I was branched out in many other ways because I won a number of boards, advising founders and startups, doing speaking internationally, co-founding, companies, all this stuff kind of at the same time. And it was really fulfilling me in many different ways because I wanted to help more people, right? And so shift in the tides, right? And I leave the company, and he asked me that question. He's like, what are you waiting for? So I filed my LLC, I bought some domains, and called a friend of mine and said, I finally started my company. And she said, oh my God, are you serious? Can you come fly to Dallas? I want to throw you a launch party.
Wow.
That's what I said. I'm like, what are you, seriously?
So crazy. Well, let me
And
tell you this for everybody that's listening out there. That's how you blaze your own trail. right? It is, this information. Other people are telling, and sometimes I think the signs are so big and bright, but we have this film over our eyes, and we just don't recognize them. We don't recognize these things about us, these gifts and the abilities, or we just can't see it. And one day, and in that story, I could tell there was a massive shift, and that question is what helped you blaze your own trail. And I hate that we have to end this episode, because it was so amazing, and I know that my audience is going to get so much value. So where can everybody find you, Brian? Where can everybody find Brian Schulman?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is my home. So you can find me on LinkedIn. It's just linkedin.com/in/Brian Schulman. And I'm sure Jordan will have my name in the show notes, so you'll know how to spell it. If you want to schedule time to chat, I always leave times open on my calendar to do so, even though everything is so busy. I love talking to people, to your point, which is how Shout Out Saturday began to begin with. So there's a tool called Calendly. It's access to my calendar. calendly.com/voice your vibe. And for anyone that wants to learn about LinkedIn, I've got a free jumpstart course that is available to you, as well as a masterclass that is in 2.0 right now. So if either of those things are interesting to you, definitely take advantage of the free course. There's so many golden nuggets that myself and my partner in crime, Rob Balasau, was for sharing. And you can learn about that at linkedinmasterclass.thinkific.com. So those are the places I tell you to find me, and look for the hashtag Voice Your Vibe. Feel free to follow it. You'll be able to catch everything that I'm sharing on LinkedIn. But again, I mean, Jordan, thank you so much. Again, I'm so humbled and so honored to be a guest and to be your very first guest. And I'm so excited for you in this show and where it's going to go. And I truly do believe this is the first step in the blazing of your trail of the next great chapter of the adventure in your journey, buddy.
Hey, man. Hey, really, really appreciate that. And folks, for those of you who are listening, I will post a little snippet of this on LinkedIn, and I'll go ahead and link all of the link his profile. We'll go ahead and link the mastery class as well. So, Brian, I definitely appreciate your time. Although you're my first guest, I'll tell you, you are going to be my first repeat guest as well, because I definitely want to have you back on so we can chat a little bit more and get some more insights on, who you are as a kid, what type of sports you're into, foods and stuff like that we didn't get to touch on today. But thanks so much for joining, and I hope you have an amazing week. All right.
Thanks, Jordan. You too, buddy.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to that episode with Brian Schulman. Man, every time I get to talk to the guy, it's just so impactful. He's such an inspiration to me and so many other people around the world. If it inspired you, please share the podcast with someone that you know. Send it to him, text it to him, let him know how awesome it is, and I hope that they can get value out of it as well. Catch you on the next episode.